Right, hi folks. So basically, I've decided that I'm definitely going to do another channel, and that's where the daily vlogs are going to go. Now, this isn't going to be one of the daily vlogs. This is going to be for the main channel. Maybe even for my Engage channel as well, actually, because it's kind of relevant. The subjects I want to talk about. I wanted to document some of my experiences at Crisis at Christmas this year. One of the things, I was talking to somebody at SHP the other day, and they suggested that we speak to their communications department, and that they do a little piece on my experiences of doing Crisis for their own publications, sort of thing. So I thought, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we'll do that. So that's going to be sometime towards end of January, somewhere around there, possibly middle of January, end of January. Anyway, so in the meantime, I did say to you guys that actually in one of my previous videos, I'm sure if I remember rightly, that I wanted to talk about it with you guys anyway. Because it was an interesting year this year. We were in a school, one of these academy school type places. It was a really lovely building, amazing atmosphere, lovely setup, everything. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, every year I like to do a place which is called the Gate, which is what it used to be called the Dependency Centre. So it's the only centre out of the Crisis usually have, I think it's around about 10 centres roughly open throughout the Christmas period every year. Some will be just day centres where they're open just during the day, and you know, others will be sort of like where people sleep and eat and all the rest of it, sort of thing. I don't know a heck of a lot about all the other centres because I've never volunteered at any of them. I've only ever done the Gate, as it's now called, and partly the reason for that is because it's very close to my heart. The subject, or the you know, the sort of I don't know how to frame that now. Basically, because of the fact that they allow the guys to drink, is because it would be dangerous for them not to, because alcohol, particularly when you become physically addicted to alcohol, particularly more so I think, although I'm not a medical expert, but I do know that it's the only drug that will actually kill you from the withdrawals. And it's actually dangerous. Even doctors, I mean, check it up yourselves, guys, if you don't believe me. Check it up, look it online. It is the only drug that will kill you from the withdrawals. Even a doctor, if you're physically dependent on alcohol, you've got a physical dependency at that point in terms of your drinking, doctors would not recommend that you just either detox yourself just on your own, or even detox just completely stop drinking. Do you know what I mean? Most medical people would advise heavily against that because it can be dangerous. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you know, you might be lucky and get away with it. Do you know what I mean? And you know, you might go for a rough period, and you might be okay. But you know, apparently it's extremely dangerous. And I've actually experienced, well, not experienced the withdrawal myself necessarily. I mean, not to that extent anyway. But I've witnessed funny enough, on one, in fact, my first year at Crisis at Christmas, I don't know, about three years ago, something like that I think it was, and it was my first ever Crisis, and it was my last shift. It was a night shift, and they had this young guy come in. He was about 19, 20 years of age, only a very young kid. He was from the Netherlands somewhere, I can't remember, like Norway or Finland, I can't quite remember, but one of the Netherlands countries, somewhere around there. And basically he was due to fly back over there the following morning, because his father had got him, managed to get him a rehab sorted out, and he was going to go and do this rehab and da da da. Anyway, he was going to spend the night with us at Crisis, and so the staff at the main key volunteers had come up to me and that said, like, can you sit with this guy for a little while, just chat with him, just make sure he's okay, blah 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 blah. Yeah, no problem. So they went off to book in his luggage, his gear, whatever it is, in the Lockheed, blimey, I can't even speak. Lockage storage locker thing. Anyway, where they keep the homeless guys' stuff. You know what I mean? They keep it in their thing. Anyway, I'm just waffling and rambling. Sorry. So they've gone off to do that, and I'm sat with this young kid, and we're chatting away for, I don't know, a good 5 minutes or so, and everything seems hunky dory or whatever. But he's got no booze, right? But he is still quite drunk. But he's starting to sober up. And right there in front of me, this young kid went into an alcoholic fit, right in front of me, and it was the most frightening, scariest thing in my life, because I mean, I was aware of alcoholic fits, and I've never seen one at that point, and I was aware, already at that point, I knew back then that alcohol is a dangerous when you're withdrawing, and it could be fatal. So I was well aware of what was happening, just didn't know what to do. Do you know what I mean? I was panicking. I was frightened. I thought this kid's dying in front of me. He's literally dying in front of me. Do you know what I mean? It's like any minute now, this kid's going to die. Do you know what I mean? And I was just panicking. I didn't know what to do. But luckily there was some, I think they were Russian, I'm not sure 100%, Eastern European guys anyway. We're in the cots next, because this is in the bedding area, this is in the sleeping area, where we were sat. I was sat on one of the empty cots and he was sat on his cot, and we were chatting away, like I say, and then his eyes rolled to the back of his head, literally, you just see the whites of his eyes, he's shaking, he was literally going into an alcoholic fit. And he could have literally died right there and then. Do you know what I mean? But these guys came over. They brought a bottle of vodka. And they started to get him to drink some of the vodka, and it brought him round. Do you know what I mean? And you think how crazy that is. That the very thing that's killing him is the thing that brings him back. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it beggars belief. Do you know what I mean? It's this crazy, crazy thing. Alcohol is the craziest, maddest thing in the world, really, when you think about it. I mean, even the experts now, if you speak to the drug advisors and drug experts and this and that, and if they say that if alcohol was invented today, if it had been invented this day, it would be classed as an illegal substance. It would be classed as a Class A drug. It's that dangerous. Do you know what I mean? It is. Do you know what I mean? Now, I'm not trying to say that, we got to ban alcohol and we got to stop them, and blah, 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 blah. Because, let's face it, I mean, the genie's been out of the bottle since mankind first started squishing grapes, I guess. You know what I mean? Wherever. You know what I mean? I mean, thousands of years we've been drinking alcohol, and it's within a lot of our cultures, for the most part anyway, particularly Western culture. It's highly dominant. You know what I mean? There's culture of as seen as a normal everyday thing, and for the most part fine. Do you know what I mean? And as I say, I'm not trying to be an advocate for saying like we should ban it or it should be this, that and the other, and da da da, because at the end of the day some people can drink it quite happily and have no real major effects whatsoever, and fair play to them. Do you know what I mean? That's their thing and whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's not for me to make a judgment on that at all. But they are the facts, plain and simple. If you actually Google poisons, list of poisons, go on Google it, list of poisons, alcohol is listed as a poison. Do you know what I mean? Plain and simple. You know what I mean? It's a fact. But it is it's a dangerous thing, alcohol. And maybe partly because it's so socially accepted generally, because we treat it in such a way as that, we treat it like a bottle of pop or something. Do you know what I mean? We treat it as like it's relatively harmless. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone does it, But I mean, if you look at the health statistics on it and what have you, and the the effects that alcohol has, it is a pretty dangerous drug. And yet the way we treat it compared to, say, we treat cocaine or we treat heroin, I'm not saying that those drugs are not dangerous in their own right either, or necessarily advocate for them to be used or whatever sort of thing. But again, that's down to personal choice. Do you know what I mean? Again, I'm not sitting here. I mean, personally, I think they should legalise all the drugs, like they have done in some other countries, and then decriminalise it and all that sort of thing. Because this so-called war on drugs, as far as I'm concerned, for the last 40 years, doesn't seem to have made a heck of a lot of difference. But that's just my personal take on it. Do you know what I mean? Prohibition has been proved that it basically doesn't work. I mean, look what happened in America back in the 1920s and 30s when they decided to do prohibition on alcohol. It didn't work. What did we end up with? We ended up with gangs and violence. Do you know what I mean? Prohibiting something or banning something doesn't necessarily help the situation or make it better. Do you know what I mean? If anything, I think it probably makes it worse. So legalising it, getting it regulated, and a lot of educating people on the realities of what happens when you're taking drugs, whatever the drug happens to be, and get the actual facts and not the myths and the misinformation and all the rest of it sort of thing, but get the actual facts on the situation and get people properly informed about what the risks are to to taking these substances, is, I think, the way forward anyway. Do you know what I mean? And then hopefully down to personal choice, and then hopefully people are sensible about it and think to themselves, what, I've seen what these drugs can do, and maybe I'm not the sort of person that could be messing about with these sort of things. Ultimately, it'd be ideal and great if people didn't have to use any substances in that sense. Do you know what I mean? Particularly the more dangerous ones. Do you know what I mean? But like I say, people are people, and people are going to experiment, and people are going to do whatever they're going to do, and just trying to ban it is not necessarily going to, like I say, I don't think it helps the situation. So, but anyway, sorry, I've kind of gone off on another tangent, as I always do. But yeah, like I said, one of the reasons why I do the gate is because obviously it's a subject that I feel quite passionate and strongly about, because I've had my own experiences with it, and mine's mostly alcohol. I've dabbled with drugs, like most of us do when we're well, say most of us, a large portion of people, I think, probably, especially when you're a youngster, sort of in your teens and whatever, you experiment, you a bit of peer pressure, whatever, this, that, and the other, smoke a joint, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I've tried most drugs. The only ones I've not tried really so much are the psychotropic drugs like LSD and things like that. I've done a bit of cocaine, I've smoked heroin here and there. But like I say, I never really got into it. It was never really my thing. Do you know what I mean? I tried them a couple of times, didn't really enjoy them, didn't really like them that much. But alcohol was my thing. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was alcohol. Like I say, addiction is addiction, whichever way you look at it. Do you know what I mean? Whatever drug or whatever it is that you're actually addicted to, addiction in and of itself is a fascinating and interesting thing anyway. And how people get addicted, and how does addiction actually work within the human brain. And I've learned quite a bit in the last few years, and just recently, like I said, I did this intuitive recovery course, which I found fascinating. All to do with the amygdala and the reward system in the brain, and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to go into a big monologue about that now. But anyway, like I said, it's close to my heart, and it breaks your heart to see some of the state that some of those guys get into. And it's not just about, that's the thing, people that don't have any kind of addiction issues and can drink alcohol quite safely and sensibly or whatever, I think it's really difficult for them to try and understand and grasp just the very nature of how addiction works and how it works. When you see those guys in the states that they get into, it's not about getting drunk and having a good time and making a fool of yourself or whatever. You know, it literally is in a lot of instances that they consume that alcohol in lots of ways to stay alive. Literally, like I said to you when I've just explained about the alcoholic fit and what have you. The thing is that their bodies now have got to the stage where their body essentially, I don't know how, I'm not a medical person, so I couldn't tell you exactly how it works medically and physically and within the body, but their bodies essentially are craving it. Their bodies essentially will shut down if it doesn't get that alcohol because it's adapted. The body is an amazing thing, the human body, and even though poison's being put into it, it will find a way of adapting. It will find a way of coping and utilising that. Even though it's a poison, it will utilise it to try and keep the body maintained and keep the body functioning. And through that process, it then becomes essentially addicted to that substance. And if that substance then is cut off, then basically the body will start to shut down. It's a bit like saying, like, right, you know, refusing to give somebody water, for instance. Do you know what I mean? A very fundamental thing to keep a human being alive. You know, the very basic natural element, water. You know, you cut somebody's water off, you deny them any liquid or whatever sort of thing, you know, deny them what? I believe it's something like 3 days before you can actually dehydrate to the point where, you know, your body starts to shut down. I mean, again, I'm not a medical expert on this, I don't absolutely know 100%, but something like that, you know, where the body again will start to shut down if it isn't given water sort of thing. And the alcohol, in a sense, it becomes like that fundamental to those people. Do you know what I mean? That get into that state. And the thing is that so it's not just about them having a good time or enjoying themselves or you know, feeling merry or making a fool of themselves. You see, that's another thing. There's something I'm actually going to start to research as well. There's a thing called blackout, which people don't fully understand either. You know, the thing is, people think when they hear the term like, oh, he drunk to blackout, they think they're like, oh, well, no, you don't actually black out in that sense and go unconscious. It's where there's a part of your mind, the part that essentially is, and again, this is something I need to research and it's something I really want to look into because I've experienced it myself. And it's really, really scary. I mean, the best analogy, the best way of describing it is like, you must have heard of people who sleepwalk. And people who sleepwalk, basically, especially the more, apparently there's, again, you can easily check it out online. There's people have done very complex things whilst they've been asleep. Literally, where they've gone, you know, they'll be in bed and then they'll wake up at some point and then they'll go downstairs and make themselves a cup of tea. And then they'll maybe even drink that cup of tea and then go back to bed. And then in the morning, and especially if like somebody's watched them do it, so you know, their spouse or their family member or whatever is, you know, was there at the time and has watched them, but didn't wake them up because again they reckon that's quite a dangerous thing to do, to wake somebody up whilst they're sleepwalking. Apparently, it could be that again. I think could be fatal, but I don't know about that. Again, I don't really know a lot about it. Just bits and bobs, like I say. You know me, my information isn't. I don't necessarily go into details of a lot of stuff unless it's something I'm really, really interested in or really want to find out about. Well, like I say, this issue about blackout, which I'm definitely going to start doing some research on. But basically, blackout is very similar to the sleepwalking thing, where, you know, a person will do very complex things whilst not actually being consciously aware of the fact that they're doing these things. But again, that's something, and I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of the moral issue, and people say like, oh well, da da da, and all this lot. You know, forget all that. That's not what I'm trying to understand myself. I'm trying to get to the crux of understanding how the mechanisms and why and how does blackout work and what have you, sort of thing. But that's something I'm going to research, like I said. But like I say, you know, so you see some of these guys at the crisis thing, and you see when they're really, really drunk. But you got to appreciate and realise that it's not about being drunk in the sense of like they're having a good time, blah blah blah, in that sense. It's literally about survival. It's literally about staying alive. It's literally topping up. Essentially that's what they're doing. They're topping up. You know what I mean? There'll be days when, you know, they've not had a drink for a few hours or whatever, and they'll seem and appear more or less sober. Do you know what I mean? But essentially their body, if you was to test their alcohol blood level, would be well over the limit. Do you know what I mean? Undoubtedly. Do you know what I mean? Their blood alcohol would be through the roof, sort of thing. But for all intents and purposes, they sound and appear relatively sober. But the thing is that like their body builds up a tolerance, and particularly with a lot of these very powerful drinks, the very strong drinks, the Tennant Supers, all the supers and all that lot. You know, if any kind of alcohol should be banned, I think they should, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, like I say, I don't believe in banning alcohol outright, but maybe certain types of alcohol I think should be, to be perfectly honest. With those Tennant Supers, all the supers, to be quite honest, I think they should definitely be banned. Because they're definitely targeted at the homeless and the people that are physically dependent, and yeah, alcohol manufacturers would deny that to the hilt. Do you know what I mean? Oh no way, absolutely. But I defy any healthy normal drinker who has not got any issue around alcohol in terms of, you know, they can take it or leave it or whatever, blah blah blah. I deny anyone to start drinking that stuff on a daily basis and see how you get on, because I'm telling you now, no normal, rational, sane human being would put that stuff down their neck. Do you know what I mean? It's anyway, that's another soapbox I could easily get onto, but again, I'm trying to not steer myself off this main topic. But anyway, see, I've just gone on a major rant about alcohol in general rather than about my experiences of crisis. So maybe this needs to come in a couple of videos rather than just one, because I'm also aware of the fact that how long this one's gone on for now. So okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little series of vlogs about my experiences of crisis this year. So I'm going to leave it there for now. And hope you will tune in for the next instalment of my experiences of crisis at Christmas. Right, okay guys, I'm going to leave it there. I'll catch you guys later. Bye for now.